The Silent Strength Within. Introduction to the Stoic Mindset. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a storm, winds howling, dark clouds swirling above. Everything around you is chaos, yet within you, there is calm. How do you remain unshaken in a world that seems to demand so much from you? Can you find peace in the midst of every noise and distraction that comes your way? Think about the last time you lost your temper over something small, or when fear paralyzed you from moving forward. How often do you let fleeting emotions control your actions? Do you ever feel like your thoughts are scattered, always moving from one worry to another, with no clear direction? This is where the ancient teachings of Stoicism step in. Stoicism is not just a philosophy, it is a way of life. It teaches us how to master our emotions, rise above external turmoil, and live with purpose, peace, and clarity. The Stoic approach is simple but profound. Focus on what you can control and accept what you cannot. Life will throw challenges at you. There is no doubt about that. But your response to these challenges is what truly matters. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, understood that inner peace comes not from avoiding life's difficulties, but from mastering the mind to remain steady in their face. By practicing self-control, they knew how to transform chaos into clarity and suffering into strength. Every day, they worked on their ability to control their emotions, to not be swept away by fear, anger, or sorrow. Welcome to Book Boost, where we dive deep into timeless wisdom for a better life. If you're ready to explore the power of Stoic teachings and discover how they can bring you peace, please drop your one thought on believe in yourself in the comments. I'd love to hear how you stay strong. And if this video resonates with you, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join us on this journey of inner transformation. In this video, you will begin to uncover the core of Stoic philosophy, to find peace within and to be free from the constant pull of destructive emotions. This is only the beginning. Let's take the first step towards a calmer, more centered version of you. The discipline of perception, seeing the world without distortion. What if everything you see, everything you feel, and every thought you have is not as real as you think it is? Imagine for a moment that everything in your life, every obstacle, every challenge, every difficult person, is not inherently good or bad. What if your perception of things is what makes them so? This idea is central to the Stoic philosophy. We live in a world full of judgments, reactions, and opinions, but the truth is, most of what we see is distorted. Our mind is not a neutral observer. It shapes and colors everything we experience. What might seem like an unbearable problem may, in fact, be an opportunity for growth. What might feel like an attack from another person could, in reality, be a reflection of your own internal struggles. The Stoics understood that the way we perceive the world is often the source of our suffering. When we react impulsively, we give away our power. We become slaves to our emotions and perceptions rather than masters of them. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This is the core of Stoic perception, the idea that our power lies not in changing the world around us, but in changing the way we see it. Consider this. A person cuts you off in traffic. Your initial reaction may be anger. You feel it in your chest, rising like a storm. But what if you took a moment to pause, to reflect, and to reframe the situation? What if you told yourself, perhaps they are in a rush. Maybe they didn't see me. Maybe it's not personal. Suddenly, your anger begins to fade. You regain your peace. You realize that the world around you is not trying to hurt you. It is simply unfolding, and your role is to choose how to interpret it. This is the power of perception. The Stoics didn't expect the world to be perfect or free of pain. In fact, they knew that hardship and struggle were inevitable. But they also knew that how we perceive these hardships is the key to overcoming them. Our judgment of events, our interpretations, and our beliefs about them are what cause us distress. By changing the way we see, we change our experience. This idea was central to the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. In his Meditations, he wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." He understood that perception is not just a passive act. It's a powerful force that shapes everything we do. If we are to live a peaceful life, We must cultivate the discipline to choose our thoughts wisely. We must learn to see things clearly, without the fog of emotional reactions and distorted judgments. But how do we develop this discipline? The first step is awareness. We must become conscious of our automatic reactions. We must observe ourselves, not just in moments of stress, but in all moments. When we feel angry, sad, or frustrated, we must ask ourselves, what am I truly reacting to? Is this situation as bad as I'm making it out to be? We must question our assumptions, challenge our beliefs, and look deeper into the nature of what's happening. Let's take an example from daily life. You're having a conversation with a friend, and suddenly, they say something that hurts your feelings. Without thinking, you feel the sting. Your mind starts to build a narrative. They don't care about me. They're being rude. I must defend myself. But what if you paused for a moment before reacting? What if you chose to see the situation differently? Perhaps they didn't mean to hurt you. Maybe their words were not directed at you at all. Maybe they were just having a bad day. When you pause and reflect, you take away the power of your initial emotional reaction. You begin to see the situation for what it truly is, without the distortion of your own assumptions. This is the Stoic way. It's not about denying your feelings or pretending to be emotionless. It's about gaining control over them and seeing the world through a clearer lens. Perception is also about recognizing the limits of your control. The Stoics understood that we cannot control everything that happens to us. Life will bring us challenges, obstacles, and moments of pain, but we can control how we respond. This is the freedom that Stoicism offers. It is not the freedom from difficulties, but the freedom to choose how we engage with them. Consider the example of a loved one falling ill. It's easy to become overwhelmed with grief and fear. But Stoicism teaches us that we cannot control the health of others. What we can control is our reaction. We can choose to approach the situation with compassion, with patience, and with acceptance. We can choose to focus on what we can do to help, rather than dwelling on the fear of what we cannot change. The Stoic practice of journaling is another tool to help us examine our perceptions. Every day, the Stoics would write down their thoughts, reflecting on the events of their lives and questioning their reactions. This practice helps to create a distance between us and our emotions, allowing us to see them for what they truly are. By writing down our thoughts, we can spot patterns in our thinking, identify negative judgments, and begin to shift our perception. It's important to remember that changing our perception is not an overnight process. It requires patience, practice, and commitment. But the more we practice, the clearer our vision becomes. Slowly, we start to see the world as it truly is, a place of endless opportunities for growth, rather than a place of endless obstacles to overcome. In the end, the discipline of perception is not about seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. It's about seeing it clearly, without distortion, without the clouding influence of our emotions. It's about accepting life as it comes and responding with wisdom, calm, and purpose. So, the next time you face a challenge, pause. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, what am I truly reacting to? Choose your response. See the world without distortion. And in doing so, find the peace that comes from within. Embracing fate, amor fati, and the power of surrender. Imagine for a moment that you are standing at the crossroads of life. You are faced with a decision, a choice, and you know that whatever path you take will change the course of your journey. You want control. You want certainty. You want things to unfold in a way that aligns with your desires, with your expectations. Yet, as we all know, life rarely works that way. We often try to bend life to our will. We push and struggle against what is inevitable, hoping that if we fight hard enough, we can escape the challenges that come our way. But in this struggle, we exhaust ourselves. We drain our energy. We miss the point. Stoicism teaches us that to live peacefully, we must learn not to fight against fate, but to embrace it. The ancient Stoic philosophers spoke of a powerful concept known as amor fati, which translates to love of fate. It is the idea that we should not only accept everything that happens to us, but learn to love it. Yes, love it. To accept everything in life, the good, the bad, and everything in between, as a necessary part of our journey, part of the bigger picture. When we stop resisting and start embracing, we stop being victims and start becoming masters of our own lives. Think of the countless times we've faced setbacks, losing a job, losing a loved one, dealing with illness or failure. These moments feel like the end of the world, don't they? They shake us to our core, and we question why such things are happening to us. But here's where Stoicism offers a different perspective. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and an emperor, said, "What happens to me is not as important as how I respond to it." In other words, our response to fate is what defines us, not the events themselves. The true Stoic does not despair when things don't go according to plan. They do not let frustration take root when life takes a turn they didn't expect. Instead, they embrace whatever comes, understanding that it is all part of a greater design. They know that adversity is a powerful teacher, and by learning from it, they become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Amor fati is not about denying the pain or the difficulty of life. It's about accepting it fully, as it is, without resistance. It's about finding the beauty in every experience, even in the challenges and struggles. In fact, the Stoics believe that it is through hardship that we grow the most. Seneca, another renowned Stoic philosopher, wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." When we face adversity and allow ourselves to experience it without resentment, we transform it into an opportunity for growth. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Think about the moments when things didn't go as you expected. How did you react? Did you fight against what happened, or did you find a way to accept it and move forward? It's natural to feel pain or disappointment when things go wrong, but Stoicism teaches us that we have the power to choose our response. We can either stay stuck in anger and frustration, or we can embrace what's happening and find a way to make the most of it. The Stoics also believed in the idea of eudaimonia, which roughly translates to flourishing or living in accordance with virtue. This is the ultimate goal of Stoicism, to live a life of meaning, purpose, and moral excellence. And what is the key to achieving this? It's the ability to accept life as it is, not as we wish it to be. The Stoic doesn't wait for the world to align with their desires. They align themselves with the world. They understand that they can't control the external circumstances, but they can control their own mind, their own reactions, and their own behavior. In this sense, amor fati is a form of freedom. It frees us from the constant battle against what is beyond our control. It frees us from the burden of expectation. It frees us from the tyranny of wanting things to be different from how they are. When we embrace fate, we free ourselves from the suffering caused by resistance. We stop fighting the current of life and learn to flow with it, moving in harmony with the world around us. This is not an easy practice, of course. It requires discipline, patience, and self-awareness. But the rewards are profound. When we learn to embrace whatever happens, we find peace. We find clarity. We find strength. We find a deep sense of freedom. We are no longer at the mercy of life's circumstances, but instead, we are in control of our own responses. We are no longer victims of fate. We are co-creators of our own experience. Let's take an example from nature to illustrate this. A tree stands firm against the wind. It does not fight the storm, it bends and sways with it. If the tree resisted the wind, it would break. But by embracing the storm, it grows stronger, its roots deepen, and it becomes more resilient. The same is true for us. By embracing the storms of life, we too grow stronger, deeper, and more resilient. We learn to stand tall, even in the face of adversity. It's important to remember that amor fati does not mean passivity. It does not mean accepting everything without question or without effort. It means accepting the present moment as it is, while still striving to improve, to act virtuously, and to do our best. It's about recognizing that the present moment, with all its challenges and hardships, is an opportunity for growth and self-improvement. As you move through your day, remember that the events you encounter are not obstacles to your peace. They are part of the path that leads you to it. Embrace them. Love them. Know that they are shaping you into the person you are meant to be. When you stop resisting, you will find that life becomes easier, more manageable, and far more fulfilling. So, the next time you face a challenge or a setback, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask yourself, "How can I embrace this? How can I make the most of this situation?" By shifting your mindset from one of resistance to one of acceptance, you will find that life's difficulties become less burdensome, and you will walk the Stoic path with peace and strength. Amor fati is not just a philosophical concept, it is a way of life. A life lived fully, with all its highs and lows, its triumphs and failures, embraced with open arms. By accepting whatever comes your way, you will discover the profound peace that lies in surrendering to fate, and in doing so, you will unlock a strength that is unshakable. Remember, the Stoic does not see fate as an enemy. They see it as a teacher, a guide, a force that shapes them into the best version of themselves. Embrace fate, and you will discover a world of inner peace and resilience, no matter what life throws your way. Guarding the mind, mastery over destructive emotions. Every day, we face countless emotions, some gentle and fleeting, others intense and overpowering. But what if we told you that your emotions don't have to control you, that you, instead, can master them? The Stoic way teaches us that emotions are not the enemy, but the lack of control over them can be. The difference between a life ruled by emotions and one guided by reason lies in how we approach them. Imagine walking through your day, and suddenly, something triggers anger. Maybe it's a comment from someone, or an unexpected problem that disrupts your flow. You feel that rush of heat, that desire to react. It's natural, it's human, but in that very moment, the choice is yours. You can let anger control your actions, or you can pause, breathe, and decide not to give in to it. This is the essence of Stoic practice. We do not need to let our emotions define us. It's not about suppressing feelings, but understanding that we have the power to decide how much space they occupy in our minds. Stoics like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius knew this well. They understood that emotions are temporary, like passing storms, and we have the ability to weather them without being swept away. When we react impulsively to emotions, we let them dictate our lives. But when we take a moment to reflect, to examine the cause of these emotions, we gain the power to shape our response. Think about this. Have you ever been in a situation where a surge of frustration made you act without thinking, only to regret your actions later? Stoicism teaches us that this impulse is not a weakness, but a signal that we need to take a step back and choose a better path. The Stoic philosopher Seneca, in his letters, often spoke about the importance of training the mind to remain unaffected by the external world. He said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." How true is that? How often do we create entire scenarios in our minds? Fears of rejection, of failure, of not being enough, and let these imagined fears paralyze us. To master your emotions, you must first recognize them. This means being fully aware of the feelings that arise within you, whether it's fear, anger, sadness, or joy, and observing them without judgment. It's easy to dismiss negative emotions as bad or unwanted, but the Stoic view is different. Every emotion is an opportunity to learn, to grow. When you feel angry, instead of letting the anger rule your actions, ask yourself, why am I angry? What has triggered this emotion? And, most importantly, is this something I can control? By practicing this self-reflection, you begin to build emotional resilience. You train your mind to separate events from your reactions. For example, imagine you receive harsh criticism at work. The first reaction may be to feel insulted, but this is a reflex, not a necessity. Instead of immediately reacting, the Stoic approach is to pause and think. This criticism is an external event. It is neither good nor bad. It is simply information. How can I learn from this? How can I use this to grow? This shift in perspective allows you to respond with calmness and clarity rather than with emotional turbulence. This idea is at the heart of Stoic wisdom. Our power lies not in what happens to us, but in how we respond to it. The Stoics taught that events themselves are neutral. They are simply events. The judgments we make about them, however, are what make them either good or bad. A crisis, for example, could be viewed as a disaster or as a challenge. If you believe it is a disaster, you may spiral into fear or despair. But if you see it as a challenge, you can face it with resolve, knowing that through adversity, you will grow stronger. Mastering your emotions does not mean suppressing them. It's about understanding their root and making a choice in how you react. Seneca wisely noted, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." How often do we create mental storms where none exist? How often do we let a passing worry snowball into an overwhelming fear? The Stoics teach us that such mental anguish is self-inflicted. To guard the mind, we must also train ourselves to recognize what is within our control and what is not. There will always be things outside of our influence, other people's actions, the future, the weather, the past. These things are not for us to control, but what we can control is how we respond. And this is where the power lies. It's the practice of choosing the calm within the storm. Imagine facing a moment of extreme frustration. Perhaps a deadline looms, or a misunderstanding arises, and all you want is to lash out. In that moment, the Stoic response is not to bottle up your emotions, but to acknowledge them without allowing them to dictate your actions. You breathe, you pause, and you take a moment to reflect. What is under my control here? What is the rational response? This is where true emotional mastery lies. Through consistent practice, you can transform these moments into opportunities for growth. Every frustration, every disappointment, every setback is an opportunity to strengthen your emotional resilience. When faced with difficulty, the Stoic does not fold or succumb to despair. Instead, they remain steady, their mind unwavering, because they know that external circumstances have no power over their inner peace. This is the essence of guarding the mind. It's about being the watcher of your thoughts, not the prisoner of them. It's about understanding that you are not your emotions, just as you are not your thoughts. These are merely passing waves in the vast ocean of your mind. And just like the ocean, you have the ability to remain calm, to stay anchored, no matter how fierce the waves may be. By learning to control our reactions, by choosing not to be ruled by fleeting emotions, we free ourselves from the tyranny of the mind. We reclaim our power. And, in doing so, we find peace, not in the absence of challenges, but in our ability to remain steadfast in the face of them. The Stoic life is a life of strength, peace, and clarity. It is the path of mastery over self, the path of guarding the mind, and the path that leads us to our highest potential. So, next time you feel your emotions surging, remember, you are not at their mercy. You have the power to pause, to reflect, and to choose your response. In that moment, you reclaim your peace and your clarity. And in this way, the Stoic philosophy guides us toward becoming the calm in the storm, the unwavering presence in a world that demands so much from us. Through mastery of the mind, we find not just tranquility, but freedom, fortitude in the face of chaos, courage as the Stoic's shield. Life is a battlefield. Every day, we face challenges that threaten our peace, our focus, and even our very sense of self. And yet, the true measure of a person is not found in how easily they sail through calm waters, but in how they stand firm in the storm. In the teachings of Stoicism, courage is not merely about bravery in the face of danger. It is about having the strength to endure, to persist, and to maintain inner peace, no matter the chaos surrounding you. We all face moments of fear. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of rejection, and sometimes, fear of our own inadequacies. These fears may be rational, or they may be based on nothing more than fleeting thoughts. Yet, they are real in the moment, and they have the power to stop us in our tracks. But the Stoic response to fear is not to ignore it or try to wish it away. Instead, the Stoic teaches us to face it head-on. Courage, as the Stoics teach, is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to act in spite of it. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." In other words, the very act of choosing to face our fears makes them less daunting. Fear thrives in avoidance, but when we step forward, we strip it of its power. The Stoic hero is not the one who charges into battle without hesitation, but the one who looks at the storm and says, "I will endure." It is the person who faces the difficult conversation with a loved one, the daunting project at work, or the loneliness of being in a crowd, and still chooses to stay grounded. They do not let their emotions dictate their actions. Instead, they take control of their thoughts and remain steady in their decisions. Imagine the pressure of a man like Marcus Aurelius, who ruled over an empire during times of war, plague, and personal loss. Yet, through it all, he maintained a sense of purpose and inner calm that few could comprehend. He wrote in his meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He understood that it wasn't the external events that shaped him, but his own response to them. Marcus didn't run from the chaos of his reign. He faced it with clarity and strength. True courage is not about running headfirst into every challenge. It is about choosing when and where to fight, when to stand firm, and when to yield. The Stoics understood that life often brings situations where the best course of action is not to confront the storm directly, but to calmly navigate through it. But navigating through chaos requires more than just intellectual understanding. It requires training, a daily practice of courage. This means choosing to act with conviction, even when the outcome is uncertain. It means learning to be resilient in the face of setbacks, to hold steady when others falter, and to maintain your principles even when the world seems to be spinning out of control. Courage is built through small, everyday choices. Every time we resist the urge to complain, every time we face an uncomfortable situation with dignity, every time we remain calm in the face of adversity, we strengthen our fortitude. This isn't about grand gestures or dramatic acts of heroism. It is about showing up each day, doing the hard work, and choosing to be calm, focused, and resolute no matter what comes our way. When we encounter difficulty, we often look for quick fixes or external solutions. We want to change the situation or escape the discomfort. But Stoicism teaches us that the true solution lies within. It is not the event itself that defines us, but our reaction to it. We are always in control of how we choose to respond. The challenge is not in the world around us, but in mastering our own reactions to it. Think about the times in your life when you've been tested. Perhaps you lost a job, faced a breakup, or dealt with illness. In those moments, did you let the storm overwhelm you? Or did you dig deep and find the strength to endure? The Stoics would argue that it is precisely in these moments that we have the opportunity to grow. It is when we face hardship head-on, without complaint or fear, that we reveal our true strength. We do not control what happens to us, but we always control how we respond. This is the core of Stoic fortitude. It is about building a mind so strong that no external force can shake it. It is about developing a heart that beats in rhythm with resilience. And it is about cultivating a spirit that stands firm no matter the odds. In times of chaos, the Stoic does not panic. Instead, they ask themselves, what can I control right now? This question is the key to their peace. By focusing only on what is within our power, our thoughts, our actions, our responses, we can rise above the turmoil. Everything else, the Stoic knows, is beyond their influence. And that is perfectly fine. In fact, it is liberating. When you accept what is outside of your control and focus only on what you can change, you no longer have to carry the burden of the world on your shoulders. The most difficult challenges often bring the greatest opportunities for growth. A true Stoic sees difficulty not as something to fear or avoid, but as a chance to sharpen their character. Whether it's facing financial hardship, dealing with criticism, or enduring personal loss, each trial is an opportunity to practice the Stoic virtues: courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance. And in doing so, we become not only more resilient, but more connected to our true selves. Imagine waking up every day knowing that no matter what happens, you have the inner strength to face it. That is the promise of Stoicism. It is not a promise of a life free from hardship, but a life where you are unshaken by it. When you build your fortitude, you are no longer subject to the whims of fate. You stand, not as a passive observer, but as an active participant in your own life. You decide how to respond, how to act, and how to live. This is the power of courage, the strength to endure, no matter what the world throws at you. When chaos comes, and it will, we choose to stand firm. When uncertainty rises, and it will, we choose to act with clarity. And when we feel weak, we choose to remember that within us lies a strength that no storm can ever take away. That is the Stoic way, the way of fortitude. Stillness is the key, cultivating inner peace in a noisy world. Close your eyes for a moment and just listen, not to the noise around you, but to the silence within. Can you hear it? Or is your mind already drifting, bouncing from one thought to the next, regrets of the past, worries about the future, the need to be somewhere, do something, fix everything? We live in a loud world. A world full of distractions, opinions, arguments, news, messages, and constant alerts. It's always calling your name, pulling your attention in 100 directions at once. It's easy to lose yourself in all of it. to forget who you are beneath the noise, to forget that there is a part of you, deep, quiet, and strong, that is untouched by the chaos outside. The Stoics called this stillness. And to them, stillness wasn't doing nothing. It was everything. It was the ability to stand calm in the middle of life's storm. It was the clarity to make decisions with a quiet mind. It was the space between stimulus and response. In that space, a Stoic finds power, peace, and freedom. You see, peace doesn't come from running away from the world. It comes from knowing how to live in it without being owned by it. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who could command armies and rule an empire, still believed his most important duty was ruling himself. He wrote in his journal, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions, than your own soul." Think about that. Even with all the power he had, the place he trusted most was the silence within himself. But stillness doesn't just show up. You have to create it. You have to protect it. And in today's world, that takes real strength. The kind of strength that says, I don't need to react to everything. The kind of strength that says, let me understand before I speak. Stillness is the skill of waiting before you act, watching before you judge, breathing before you answer. In this stillness, you don't lose control, you find it. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you truly sat with your own thoughts without needing to change them? When was the last time you allowed your mind to slow down? Not because someone told you to meditate, but because you knew it was the only way to see clearly. The Stoics believed that your mind, when quiet, is like still water. And when the water is still, it reflects the truth. But when your mind is noisy and restless, everything looks distorted. You can't see what's real. You can't hear your own wisdom. You rush. You panic. You fall. That's why stillness isn't just a nice idea. It's necessary. It's where your strength lives. It's where your clarity returns. And it's where peace begins. Seneca, a wise Stoic writer, said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think about that. So many of our worries, our fears, our stress, they don't come from what's really happening. They come from what we think might happen, from the stories we tell ourselves. And if the mind never rests, those stories never stop. Stillness allows you to interrupt the noise, to say, this is just a thought. I don't need to follow it. That is freedom. It's not always easy. Sometimes the world will push harder. People will provoke you. Life will throw problems your way. And your first instinct will be to react fast, to argue, to defend. But a Stoic doesn't act on impulse. A Stoic pauses, not out of fear, not because they're weak, but because they know that stillness gives birth to wisdom, and wisdom leads to better choices. Even Epictetus, born into slavery, taught that no one could steal his peace unless he gave it away. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, he said. And the space between what happens and how you react, that's stillness. It's in that space that your real power lives. You don't need a quiet room to find stillness. You don't need a perfect life. You just need to step back, take a breath, and remember that you are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. And the watcher can choose when to act and when to wait. Stillness teaches you patience. It teaches you that you don't need to chase everything. Not every battle is yours to fight. Not every opinion deserves your energy. And not every problem must be solved right now. Some things work themselves out, if only you stop adding noise. Peace isn't about silence on the outside. It's about silence on the inside. The Stoic sits in that silence, not because he has nothing to say, but because he has nothing to prove. His actions speak louder. His calm is his confidence. And in a world full of shouting, that calm becomes power. So how do you find stillness? You slow down. You watch your breath. You choose your words carefully. You focus on the task in front of you, not what might happen next. You make time to reflect, to walk alone, to read, to write. You learn to be okay with not knowing everything, not fixing everything, not reacting to everything. That is the beginning of wisdom. The Stoics didn't try to escape the world. They learned how to live in it without letting it control them. They showed us that even in the middle of noise, you can carry peace inside you like a flame that never dies. And you have that flame, too. Even if you've forgotten it, even if it's been buried under stress, fear, or endless distractions, it's still there, waiting, quiet, strong, unmoved. So now, tonight, as you listen to these words, let them be a reminder. Let this be your time to return to yourself, to sit with your breath, to leave the world behind for a while, to trust that whatever happens tomorrow, you will face it with calm, with strength, with clarity, because stillness isn't weakness. Stillness is power, and the one who can sit in stillness cannot be shaken by the noise of the world. The art of letting go, detachment, loss, and the impermanence of all things. We often cling to what we have, don't we? Whether it's our possessions, our relationships, or our sense of control over life, we hold on tightly. The thought of losing any of it fills us with fear, discomfort, and dread. But what if the key to peace is not in holding on, but in letting go? Imagine for a moment that everything you've known, everything you've gathered in life, could be taken from you tomorrow. The house, the job, the loved ones, even your own body. What if they were all gone in an instant? Most people would tremble at the thought. But for the Stoic, this is not a nightmare. This is simply the truth of life. The Stoics teach us to embrace this truth. Nothing lasts forever. Everything we hold dear is temporary. The people we love will age, the possessions we cherish will wear out, and even our own lives will eventually end. Yet, instead of fighting against this inevitability, the Stoics ask us to accept it. Acceptance of loss, of impermanence, is not a form of resignation or despair. It is, in fact, one of the most liberating realizations we can have. In their teachings, the Stoics spoke about amor fati, the love of fate. This idea tells us to not only accept what happens in life, but to love it. Whatever life throws at us, we should take it as a part of our journey. The loss of a friend, a job, or even the loss of youth. All are to be met not with resistance, but with gratitude. These experiences shape us. They teach us lessons that we would never learn in times of ease and comfort. In the face of loss, we often experience grief, sadness, and anger. These emotions feel real, and they are natural reactions to losing something or someone important to us. But the Stoics understood that while these emotions may be inevitable, our attachment to them is not. The key to peace is not in the avoidance of these emotions, but in our ability to detach ourselves from them. We can feel the sadness, but we do not have to let it define us. We can grieve, but we do not need to drown in the grief. We can love deeply, but we must also understand that nothing lasts forever. Take a moment to reflect on a loss you've experienced. Perhaps it was a relationship that ended, a dream that never came to fruition, or a time in your life that has passed. What if you could look at that loss not as something taken from you, but as something that has made you who you are today? What if you could accept it, not as a tragedy, but as a part of the flow of life? This is the Stoic way. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." We are poor not because we lack things, but because we crave them too much. Our attachments to things, people, and outcomes create a sense of emptiness within us. The more we desire, the more we fear losing. And the more we fear losing, the more we suffer. This cycle of craving and fearing leads us away from peace and inner strength. Instead of holding on tightly, the Stoics encourage us to live with a sense of detachment. Detachment does not mean indifference or coldness. It simply means not letting the external world control our internal peace. The Stoic knows that they cannot control what happens to them, but they can control how they respond. They can choose to let go of their attachments, their fears, and their desires. In doing so, they free themselves from the chains of expectation and disappointment. Epictetus, another Stoic philosopher, famously said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." The more we want, the more we are bound by our desires. But when we let go of these desires, we free ourselves from the constant chase for more. We can then live a life of contentment, appreciating what we have without clinging to it. We stop seeing the world as something to be conquered or owned, and instead see it as something to be experienced, embraced, and let go of when the time comes. The art of letting go is not easy. It requires practice and patience. It requires us to confront our deepest fears, the fear of loss, the fear of change, the fear of impermanence. But as we practice detachment, we begin to realize that nothing in this world is permanent. The people, the possessions, the comforts we rely on, they will all fade away. And yet, life will continue. We will continue. We are not defined by what we have, but by who we are and how we respond to the world around us. In the quiet of the night, When we lie awake with thoughts of loss, we can remind ourselves of this truth. We are not our possessions. We are not our relationships. We are not our successes or failures. We are the thoughts we choose to dwell on, the actions we choose to take, and the inner strength we cultivate each day. When we can let go of our attachments, we find a deeper sense of peace. We no longer need to hold on to the past, to what we've lost, or to what we fear losing. Instead, we can simply be present in the moment, accepting life as it comes and going with the flow. This is the art of letting go, and it is through this practice that we find true freedom. So, the next time you find yourself clinging to something, whether it's a person, an outcome, or an object, ask yourself, what if I let go? What if I stopped holding on so tightly? What if I allowed life to unfold as it will, without fear, without resistance, and without attachment? This is the way of the Stoic. This is the path to peace. Daily rituals of a Stoic, practicing peace in every action. To the Stoic, life is not simply about grand gestures or fleeting moments of inspiration. It is about the quiet, everyday actions that shape who we are. The small decisions we make, the thoughts we entertain, the words we speak. These are the true tests of our character. The Stoic way is not about waiting for life's challenges to test us, but rather about preparing ourselves in every moment, every breath, to meet whatever comes with calmness, clarity, and strength. In the morning, when you open your eyes, the world is silent. This is the moment to set your mind. Before you rush into the day's demands, before you are pulled by the tide of the world around you, take a moment to ask yourself, what can I control today? What is in my power, and what is beyond my reach? The Stoic begins every day by focusing on what they can influence, his own actions, his own thoughts, and his own responses. Everything else, the weather, the opinions of others, the events of the world, is beyond his control. And this acceptance, this understanding, is the foundation of inner peace. The Stoic practice does not begin when the world challenges you. It begins the moment you open your eyes. As you step out of bed, you begin your day by taking full responsibility for your own state of mind. You will encounter frustrations, mistakes, and disappointments throughout the day. But when you face them, you do so not with anger or resentment, but with a clear mind and a calm heart. This is the power of daily practice. It prepares you for the inevitable chaos, the unpredictable waves of life, so that you do not fall victim to them. Stoicism is built on the idea that everything outside of your control is simply noise. The true strength of the Stoic comes from their ability to filter out the unnecessary, to stay focused on the task at hand, and to remain steady in the face of any storm. When you cultivate this mindset, you learn to stop reacting to the world around you. You stop allowing things like anger, jealousy, or frustration to dictate your actions. Instead, you respond with grace and wisdom, knowing that the world will not always go your way, and that is perfectly fine. Throughout the day, the Stoic watches their thoughts like a guard watching over a city. Every thought that arises has the potential to influence their actions. Therefore, they are careful about what they allow to occupy their minds. Negative thoughts, self-pity, or judgments of others are dismissed as distractions. The Stoic chooses thoughts that align with virtue, thoughts of kindness, patience, courage, and understanding. The mind is a garden, and it must be tended carefully to avoid the growth of poisonous weeds. Take, for example, a moment when you face a challenge. Maybe it's a confrontation at work, a disagreement with a friend, or an unexpected setback. Your immediate instinct may be to react, perhaps with anger, frustration, or defensiveness. The Stoic, however, pauses. They breathe, they reflect, and they ask themselves, is this something I can control? If the answer is no, they let it go. If it's something they can control, they act with purpose, never allowing emotions to cloud their judgment. They remember that every moment is an opportunity to practice the virtues of Stoicism: self-control, wisdom, courage, and justice. One of the key rituals of a Stoic is a moment of reflection in the evening. At the end of each day, the Stoic takes time to review their actions, their words, and their thoughts. They ask themselves, did I live in accordance with my values today? Was I true to the Stoic principles I hold dear? Did I react impulsively to situations, or did I respond with calm and reason? This is not an exercise in self-criticism, but in self-awareness. It is a way to continuously improve and to learn from the mistakes of the day. If they fell short, the Stoic acknowledges it without shame, but with a clear determination to do better tomorrow. This daily practice of self-reflection and mindfulness is at the heart of Stoicism. It is about taking ownership of your life, not as something that happens to you, but as something that you actively shape. Every action, no matter how small, contributes to the person you are becoming. If you respond to stress with calm, you are building a resilient mind. If you act with kindness, even when it is difficult, you are strengthening your character. The Stoic does not wait for life to present a challenge before deciding to act with virtue. They practice it every day in the smallest of moments. This constant practice, this dedication to living with virtue in every action, is what sets the Stoic apart. It is easy to be kind when everything is going well, but the Stoic's true character is tested in moments of difficulty. And yet, even in hardship, the Stoic does not waver. They embrace the struggle, knowing that it is in these moments that their strength and character are forged. The challenges of life are not obstacles to overcome, but opportunities for growth and self-mastery. There is power in the everyday rituals of the Stoic. By focusing on the present moment, by practicing mindfulness and self-control, we begin to shape our minds and hearts in ways that make us more resilient, more peaceful, and more capable of facing the storms of life with grace. In the Stoic's world, peace is not something that is found in a distant future or in external circumstances. It is something that is cultivated every single day, in every action, in every thought. It is within us, and it is ours to create. This is the essence of the Stoic path, to find peace and clarity, not by seeking it from the outside, but by cultivating it within. It is a practice that requires patience, dedication, and self-awareness. But the reward is profound. When you live in accordance with Stoic principles, your life becomes a steady stream of purpose and peace. You stop reacting to the world around you, and you begin to shape your own responses with intention and wisdom. In the end, the Stoics' rituals are not just about achieving peace for a moment or two. They are about transforming your entire life into a practice of peace. Every action, every word, every thought is a step towards becoming the person you are meant to be. And this is the beauty of Stoicism. It is not about perfection. It is about progress. It is about becoming better every single day, in every single way. Returning to the self, closing reflections on the Stoic path. When we first begin our journey through the Stoic teachings, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. There's so much to learn, so much to absorb, so much to understand. We look at the vastness of our own mind and see the clutter, the distractions, the chaos of emotions running wild. But here, at the end of our journey, we must understand that the path is not about perfection. It's not about reaching some ideal state where we no longer face difficulties, where we never feel pain or doubt. The true power of Stoicism lies in how we respond, how we choose to act, and, most importantly, how we choose to be. Throughout this journey, we've seen that the Stoics were not saints, untouched by life's trials. They were human, just like us. What set them apart was their ability to rise above the noise, to remain focused, to act from a place of inner strength rather than from reactive impulses. Their teachings are not just philosophical ideas. They are practical tools for living. They show us that we do not need to control the world around us. The only thing we need to control is ourselves, our thoughts, our reactions, our understanding of what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This simple, yet profound, realization is the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. Everything we face in life, every challenge, every obstacle, is, in essence, a reflection of our internal world. When we feel overwhelmed, it is not the circumstances themselves that weigh us down. It is how we perceive and react to them. By practicing the teachings of the Stoics, we begin to change our perception. We learn to separate ourselves from our emotions, to observe them from a distance, and to choose how we respond. Imagine, just for a moment, what it would be like to move through life without being dragged around by every emotional wave. Picture yourself standing firm, like a tree in the middle of a storm, the winds of anger, fear, and frustration swirling around you. but you remain rooted. This is the power of Stoicism. It teaches us that we can't control the storm, but we can control how we stand in the midst of it. In every moment of life, we are presented with a choice: to react impulsively or to respond with wisdom. The Stoic path asks us to pause, to reflect, to take a breath before we act. This is the essence of self-control, the ability to choose our response rather than allowing our emotions to dictate our actions. It is in those moments of pause that we find our true strength. We realize that we are not slaves to our emotions, but masters of them. And as we cultivate this mastery, we begin to move through life with a quiet confidence, unshaken by the turmoil around us. But it is not just about avoiding negative emotions. It is about embracing life as it is, with all its challenges, its pain, and its beauty. The Stoics taught us to practice amor fati, the love of fate. This means not merely accepting what happens to us, but loving it, as it is an essential part of the story of our lives. Every experience, whether good or bad, is an opportunity for growth. Every setback is a lesson in resilience. Every sorrow is a reminder of the fleeting nature of life, and in that, there is beauty. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." How often do we waste time on things that don't matter? How often do we let our minds wander to places that only bring us pain, regret, or anxiety? The Stoics ask us to focus on what is truly important, on the things we can control, and to let go of the rest. They remind us that our time is precious, and the way we choose to spend it shapes the person we become. One of the greatest lessons we can take from the Stoics is that peace is not found in the absence of conflict. Peace is found in how we navigate conflict. When we face adversity, we don't fight against it. We don't resist it. Instead, we accept it as part of the process of life. We do not allow it to define us, but instead, we choose how we will face it. This mindset transforms challenges into opportunities. It transforms pain into wisdom. It transforms fear into courage. When we look at life through the lens of Stoicism, we begin to see everything as an opportunity to practice virtue, courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance. These are the cornerstones of Stoic philosophy, and they are not abstract concepts. They are actionable virtues, things we can practice every single day. In every moment, we are presented with a choice: to act from wisdom or from ignorance, to act from justice or from selfishness, to act from courage or from fear, to act from temperance or from excess. And as we make these choices, we begin to build a life of meaning, a life of purpose. When we finally return to ourselves, we realize that the journey was not about mastering some ideal form of self-control. It was not about becoming perfect. It was about becoming more attuned to the reality of who we are. The Stoics teach us that we are already whole. We are already capable. We are already powerful. Our only task is to recognize this power within us and to live in alignment with it. So, as we reflect on our journey through Stoicism, let us remember that the path does not end here. It is not a destination, but a continuous practice. Every day is an opportunity to return to the self, to return to our inner strength, and to live with peace and clarity. The Stoics remind us that the world is not always kind, but that we can still choose how we face it. And in that choice, we find our true power. Let us go forth, then, not as individuals lost in the chaos of life, but as individuals who have learned to stand firm, rooted in the teachings of those who came before us. In every challenge, in every moment of suffering, let us remember that we have the power to choose our response. We have the power to cultivate peace in the storm. This is the Stoic way. This is the way of returning to the self.